gentlemen, we are doing this, Nihilist Wrestling Episode 3. I am your host, Ash Manson. We are still here, hell yeah. Just a personal note about me. I sometimes have a hard time sticking to things, but I am sticking to this. We're gonna try to get an episode up every week, maybe more frequently, maybe less often as my schedule dictates. But for now, we're just going to be regularly posting and, see what we get into week to week. Got a few topics I want to talk about today. First and foremost, Moné talks. Hell yes, Mercedes Moné debuted at AEW Dynamite. We're going to get into that. We are going to talk about the Judgment Day. You see me repping the Judgment Day, the All Rise shirt. And I got the hat there. I was rocking the Dirty Dom shirt last week. I fuck with the Judgment Day. I've been with the Judgment Day ever since Damian Priest and Edge both raised their arm at WrestleMania. We're talking pre-mommy. We're talking about I've been down with the Judgment Day since people would laugh at me for saying that they're my favorite faction in WWE. We're going to get into that a little bit later. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, I talked about this last week, about how Drew McIntyre blurs the lines about what is a babyface and what is a heel. And The Rock has kind of blurred the lines a little bit in recent promos too. So we're going to get into all of that and probably some more. So let's get right into it. Mercedes Moné is all elite. And ever since Sasha Banks at the time, and Naomi, formerly and currently, walked out of WWE, I was always kind of hoping that Naomi would end up back with WWE and Mercedes would go to AEW. And that's how it ended up shaking out. I know Trinity, Naomi, went to TNA at first, and that was probably the right move for her at the time. She kind of got to be a bigger fish in a little pond for a while and really be one of the main stars of that division. Of course, Trinity is incredibly talented. I'm glad that she is back with WWE. But we're going to talk about Mercedes. I thought, AEW built a show around her. We all knew when it was big business and it was in Boston, we all knew who puts the boss in Boston. She may not be the boss anymore. She's the CEO. But we all knew they were talking about Mercedes Moné. AEW has done that before when Rampage had that episode in Chicago where CM Punk debuted. They didn't explicitly say CM Punk was coming, but Tony Khan, there was speculation and Tony was like, I like to give people what they want when people were prodding him about what exactly would be happening on that Rampage. So yeah, they didn't advertise Mercedes, but we knew, and they did it the same way they did Punk. The show kicked off, and just right away her new music hits, and once you hear CEO, there she was. Of course, she looked like $1 million. She's always got her style on. She looked very happy to be there. They presented her as a big deal because she is a big deal. She was one of the pioneers of the women's revolution in WWE. I still remember her match with Bayley at NXT TakeOver all those years ago that really helped to raise the bar and just let us wrestling fans know that women can do this too, and they can do it just as good and sometimes even better. But Mercedes / Sasha has always just given me that impression that she's a wrestler's wrestler. She needs to be in a professional wrestling company. WWE allowed her to get stale, in my opinion. Every time she came out on SmackDown and it's boss time, it lost its luster towards the end of her run, and I don't think that's of any fault of her own. They they gave Naomi and Sasha at the time, that was their names, they gave them the tag team titles, and the two of them like decided like, hey, if this is the play that's being called, we're going to knock it out of the park. And then all of a sudden, and I think they did help elevate the women's tag team division, but then all of a sudden the tag champs were just being used as fodder to feed to the women's world champions, and it just didn't really feel right. And both Trinity, Naomi, and Mercedes, like they really got to shine in TNA and New Japan respectively, and I worry that Naomi is going to get lost in the shuffle again. But time will tell on that one. As far as what awaits Mercedes in AEW, I mean, there are some great matches to be had. They automatically kind of teased like that she might be going after Julia Hart, which they had like Mercedes and Willow, who I thought Mercedes had beef with Willow. That was a little bit confusing, but Mercedes and Willow were staring down Sky Blue and Julia Hart. So it really seems like they're probably going to do a tag team match between those four, and then probably lead up to a program between Mercedes and Julia Hart. And even if like Mercedes takes the title off of Julia, which I don't want to happen necessarily, like much like the Judgment Day is my favorite stable in WWE, the House of Black is my favorite stable in AEW and in wrestling, period. Well, currently in wrestling. So I don't want to see Julia lose the title, but if Mercedes were to enter into a program with Julia, even if she were to beat Julia, it elevates her and it elevates the TBS championship. So that's definitely a win-win scenario. One thing I definitely want to see as far as the AEW women's division goes is I want to see women's tag team titles. And I know the titles in AEW are so oversaturated. There's some things I would do personally to address that. I would stop defending Ring of Honor titles on AEW TV, because why are you paying $10 a month for Honor Club? I'm not currently subscribed to Honor Club, even though I love AEW and Ring of Honor, because I see almost all my favorite Ring of Honor people on AEW. I'm bummed I don't get to see like Athena. She's pretty much exclusively to Ring of Honor, but most of the top people there you see on AEW, so there's not much of a reason to subscribe to Honor Club, especially if you're not going to get the pay-per-views, which last time pay-per-views were on Honor Club. I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent. So, first thing, I would stop, and except for in very special occasions, I'd stop defending Ring of Honor titles on AEW TV. They belong on Ring of Honor. Then, like, there's a little bit of convolution with all the second tier titles. Like, I thought originally the TNT Championship was like the number 2 title because it was the second title. Then they introduced the All Atlantic, which that was a weird title. I'm glad they changed it to the International. But now they have the Continental Crown Championship too, and you have the International title and the Continental Crown. Together they sound like the Intercontinental Champion, which you probably don't want to use that term because that's WWE's belt and all that, but you effectively have 2 titles that kind of seem to mean the same thing, or they both imply like second tier title, Intercontinental title. So I'm a little confused why both of those are active. I would maybe combine those. I know that they just made the Continental Classic title, but they really didn't need that. I would have made the women's tag team titles before the TBS championship too. I'm glad the TBS title is there, but as far as priorities go, like, if you don't have women's tag team titles, then why are there women alliances? Why is there Julia Hart and Sky Blue? Why is there Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale? Why is there Nyla Rose and The Problem, Marina Shafir? You know what I'm saying? So I get that titles are oversaturated in AEW, but I would absolutely make an AEW Tag Team Championship, just so you can make hypothetical matches. And I'm not saying that Julia Hart, Sky Blue versus Mercedes Moné and Willow Nightingale should be a tag team title match necessarily. I'm just saying I like the alliances to have like implications, like they could have a goal by teaming together rather than just being in each other's corner. That's where I would like to, that's what I would like to see in the AEW women's division. Plus, there's a lot of talent that you can bring in to bolster the tag team division. Personally, I'd really like to see the Hex of Marty Bell and Allison Kay signed to AEW. That is a personal wish of mine. But yeah, Mercedes being in AEW definitely bolsters the women's division. I'm definitely looking forward to see where it goes from there. Because, again, she's a wrestler's wrestler. She has bangers as far as matches go. And, yeah, looking forward to seeing what she does, where they go, and how, just the direction the AEW women's division goes from here. So now, it is time to talk about my favorite stable in WWE for a couple years now. All rise for the Judgment Day. We're going to briefly touch on every member of the Judgment Day and what I like about what they're doing, what I would like to see them do, because I said I fuck with the Judgment Day. They're my group. As I mentioned too, I'm a big fan of the House of Black. One of the main reasons why I'm such a big fan of both the Judgment Day and the House of Black is because I am a heavy metal fan, as you might be able to tell by my appearance. And I mean, back in the day, you used to be able to turn on the TV or the radio, and you could at least hear some heavy metal music. Like back in the late 90s, there was new metal and stuff like that. The early 2000s, there was like the new wave of American heavy metal. But now there is almost no representation for metal in any mainstream outlet except for professional wrestling. How does that relate to heavy metal? Well, hear me out. Rhea Ripley uses her theme song is sang by Chris Motionless of Motionless in White. The Motionless in White is my favorite band to come out on this side of the year 2000. They're absolutely amazing, almost perfectly catered to my taste in music. People could see Rhea Ripley and hear her theme song and just think, who is this? And they look up Chris Motionless and Motionless in White. That's a vessel for them to get into heavy metal. And plus, you just look at the way that the Judgment Day looks and all the dark gothic imagery. The same way the House of Black has like death and black metal theme music for their various, entrance themes, and the very, very like black metal aesthetic. Like, wrestling has representation for heavy metal heads in a way that we can't find it in any other place. I know the way that you consume content is very different in the year 2024, and you can hop on the internet and find practically anything, but I still appreciate the fact that I can see people kind of representing the heavy metal culture on wrestling television. I don't think I remember the Judgment Day are necessarily metalheads themselves, but they're at least portrayed in a way that, screams gothic heavy metal culture. So let's go on down the line. I'm going to start with Rhea Ripley because that is the simplest answer as far as like what I'm seeing, what I'm liking, what I want to see. Just more of everything that she's doing. Rhea Ripley, in my opinion, is not just the biggest female star in WWE. I'm talking like one of the biggest stars in the company, top 3 or 5, like arguably like in the conversation for top performer in WWE right now. She's a pop culture sensation. People that don't even like wrestling appreciate mommy. I'm just hoping she wins at WrestleMania and holds that women's world title for as long as humanly possible, because she is absolutely killing it. Can't say enough good things about mommy. Now we're going to talk about JD McDonough, because I actually don't really like the way that JD McDonough has been used since being called up on the main roster. JD McDonough was my favorite wrestler in NXT prior to being called up. We're talking about a roster that has Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, Braun Breaker, Tiffany Stratton. I know some of them have been called up, but I'm saying JD McDonough was my favorite in NXT. Just because he, like, for one, he's mostly been, he's been used as an enhancement guy, just to make other people look good. And he's very good at doing that. Even in NXT, he ultimately ended up putting other people over more often than not. But JD McDonough can straight up go. And his personality, at least the way that he was portrayed in NXT, it's basically like, I would describe it as Randy Orton, but done right. I know people gonna be pissed at that, I know. But to me, Randy Orton's boring. Like, that's a controversial opinion I hold. Like I said, that doesn't mean I'm right. That's just how I feel. Orton doesn't do it for me. But JD McDonough, he had that cerebral character that I really appreciated. Like, just kind of like the psychotic but cool, calm, and collected. I'm a massive fan of JD McDonough. I'm glad that they featured him in that qualifying match for who got to go to WrestleMania to face Gunther. I think they got the finish to that one wrong, but we're gonna get to that one later. I hope that in the future they do a little bit more to showcase JD McDonough, because he's a lot better than how he's being portrayed. Finn Balor, like, I've been a fan of this man for a very long time, of course, a massive fan of the Bullet Club, the OG leader of the Bullet Club. Finn Balor is amazing. Right now, he seems like he's in the position where he's being used prominently every week. They're not really, like, building the show around him, but he's also he's always on the bench. Like, he's that pinch hitter. If they need somebody to slot in that main event role, they know that they can, hit up Finn Balor at any time. He's just got everything. He's just oozing the it factor. I would have had him go over Edge at last year's WrestleMania. I'm a huge fan of Edge. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but ultimately, Balor's there now and Edge isn't. It would have been more meaningful if Balor went over. I would have probably thrown the World Heavyweight Championship on Finn Balor by now. But I'm absolutely loving the tag team of Finn Balor and Damian Priest. I don't want to see them drop the tag team titles. The only thing I want to see as far as the tag team titles go is I want to see the Raw and SmackDown titles split. I don't get why they're carrying around those very ugly ass red and blue belts. They're ugly as shit. I really hope I wish they would redesign them. But they're having this thing where Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce are like competing against each other, and they're like trying to land guys to exclusive contracts. But the tag titles, they migrate from each show. And I get that the women's tag team division might not be deep enough to have a women's tag team division in both Raw and SmackDown, so I kind of get that they're able to travel from show to show, but you have more than enough male tag teams where you can have Raw and SmackDown tag team champions. Just my opinion. I would also I would give NXT back their women's tag team titles. I didn't think that tag team title merger made a whole lot of sense, because there's all kinds of like up and comers in NXT that I would, love to see given an opportunity. Like, for example, I know Lyra Valkyria is the NXT Women's Champion now, but I'm absolutely loving this pairing of Tatum Paxley and Lyra Valkyria. I think that'd be a great opportunity to make Lyra a double champion and add a new dynamic to whatever's going on between the two of them, which is incredibly compelling. But all this to say, I really like Balor and Priest's tag team title reign. And that brings me to Senior Money in the Bank himself, Damian Priest. I'm going to make a prediction before I get into it, what I'm hoping for him. Here's my prediction. They're having that six pack tag team title ladder match at WrestleMania. I think that's what they're doing. I haven't announced all the participants yet, but my perception of that is that that's a way to get the titles off of the Judgment Day without necessarily hurting Damian Priest. The reason being is I absolutely think that Drew McIntyre is going to defeat Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, and immediately after that, Damian Priest is going to cash in the Money in the Bank contract and steal Drew McIntyre's valor and basically steal his moment, much like Seth Rollins stole it from, I believe it was Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns years ago. And here's the reason why is because Drew has screwed Damian Priest over so many times when he's tried to cash in the Money in the Bank. Drew would come out and make sure that he wasn't able to. They've kind of cooled tensions between Priest and McIntyre, but if my prediction comes true, they're going to revisit this history between the two of them, and it's going to make for a white-hot rivalry, because Drew McIntyre has really obscured what it means to be a babyface and a heel. And I absolutely think that he could still work as the babyface in the program against Damian Priest going forward on Raw. And we're going to talk a little bit more of that lately. But yeah, my prediction is that the Judgment Day lose the tag team titles and in that match that's kind of designed to not make them look bad when the titles get taken off of them, and Damian cashes in at WrestleMania on Drew McIntyre. And of course, there's a story how McIntyre's moment was kind of in 2020 he wins with no people, so it kind of puts a damper on his moment. Then he finally works his way back years later, only for Senior Money in the Bank to steal it from him. I think that is excellent going forward. I can't wait for that program if it does happen. And that brings me to the last and my personal favorite member of the Judgment Day, Dirty Dominic Mysterio. I said earlier I thought that they got the finish between who's going to WrestleMania to challenge Gunther. I think they got that wrong. I would have absolutely had Dominic Mysterio challenge Gunther at WrestleMania. And I know, Sami Zayn, he's kind of on a redemption arc, and it makes sense. I know some people are upset because they were really hoping it was going to be Chad Gable, and it really seemed like they were building it up to be Chad Gable. And I think I like the way that WWE is they're booking their storylines in a way that you can see multiple plausible ways forward. And I think that's absolutely a good thing. There was reason to believe it could have been Nia Jax and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, or Nia Jax defeats Becky Lynch and goes on and faces Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, but instead it was it's going to be Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch, which they also foreshadowed that. They're doing kind of the same thing with this Intercontinental title picture, where they gave you an entire story about how Chad Gable, after taking Gunther to the limit, it was going to be him. He was going to, avenge Gunther making his daughter cry and all that. And Sami Zayn was I was in the main event of WrestleMania last year, and now I'm not even on the show. I need to find my way back. Here's why I think it should have been Dominic, and I don't like it being either one of them. I like Chad Gable. Much like Randy Orton, he just doesn't do it for me. I'm not saying that I can't get behind Chad Gable. I'm just saying the current way that he's being presented, I think they're making him more sympathetic, bringing his daughter into there. To me, he's always just going to be the shoosh and I thank you guy. He's a great wrestler. He's got, he's a funny guy. He's got a great thing going with the Alpha Academy. I just have yet to see him in the Intercontinental Championship light. I hope they change that, but as of right now, I'm just not there. Maybe you feel differently, but that's just my opinion on it. The reason why I don't like it being Sami Zayn is because Sami Zayn, just bottom line, has already been Intercontinental Champion. He was talking for months about how his World Heavyweight Championship material, those were his words. He's World Heavyweight Championship material. LOL, JK, he's going to go for the Intercontinental Championship. And I know it's a little bit different because he's going against the longest reigning Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, as Gunther says it, of all time, and Sami winning that definitely gives him momentum towards becoming World Heavyweight Champion one day. But I absolutely hate the Intercontinental Championship being just so secondary. Like, I always hate it when the Intercontinental Champion is in a number one contenders match for the World Heavyweight Championship. I want it to be its own thing, and then once you're done with that, then you can go and think about challenging for the next level. I think Gunther is absolutely to the point where he could challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, and it's 1,000% believable, but I would have had him face Dominic Mysterio. And you might ask, why heel on heel action? I keep saying it. The dynamics between babyface and heel, it's being blurred quite a bit in WWE. And I think people don't like Gunther, but they respect him. And Dominic Mysterio is the future of professional wrestling. Gunther's somewhere around 35, 36. He's still hopefully going to be wrestling for many years to come, but Dominic is absolutely the future of this business. Like, I hope 20 years from now Dominic is still wrestling. I hope to see Dominic headlining WrestleMania. I know that you might be booing me like everyone boos him at the arenas just saying that, but that's how damn good the kid is. Like, he gets you to care. He draws that reaction, and I would absolutely have him cheat. Like, whether it be one member of the Judgment Day, like interfering or doing something to fuck Gunther out of the title. I know he's a heel, but people are still going to be so pissed off that the greatest Intercontinental Championship reign of all time was ended by Dirty Dominic, who they hate so much. Like, the heat would be nuclear. I think he's absolutely ready to be Intercontinental Champion. His ring work is there. His character work is like, he's one of the best characters in wrestling right now. Dirty Dom, he did Hard Time, and he's ready for that Intercontinental Championship. So yeah, I'm bummed that they're going with Sami Zayn. I still hope that Sami wins the match, because at this point Gunther's not proving anything by his Intercontinental title reign being any longer than it already is. And he's ready to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship or the WWE Championship. And I guess it would do a little something for Sami, but like I said, I don't like when it's done this way necessarily. But yeah, that's ultimately like my thoughts on the Judgment Day. I hope that Damian Priest has a good long run as the World Heavyweight Champion, because I think he has it too. I think the Judgment Day are the future of WWE collectively. I know like Balor and Priest are a little bit older. They're in their early 40s and all that. But, JD's mid-30s. Rhea and Dominic are mid-20s. I hope they stay together. I don't want to, especially, the worst thing they could possibly do, in my opinion, is turn Rhea face. We all like her anyway, keep her exactly the way she is, and we'll keep cheering for her, because we all love mommy. But, yeah, I just think Judgment Day is the future. Like, I hope that Judgment Day, and I predict that they'll have a good day, good couple nights at WrestleMania, despite the fact that I'm predicting that, Priest and Balor are going to lose the World Tag Team Championships. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the Judgment Day. Alright, I keep foreshadowing this. What is a heel? What is a babyface? We talked about it a little bit last week. There was an interview with Drew McIntyre. It was from Gorilla Position or something like that on YouTube. And he said that a fan came up to him recently and said that he really enjoyed his heel work. And Drew McIntyre's like, thank you, but I'm not a heel. And the fan was confused, and he's like, "Well, really, have I changed who I am or what I've done since 2019?" He's like, "No, no." He's like, he mentioned that he might have altered his character, and he's not just the smiling guy holding the sword anymore, but Drew McIntyre has plausible deniability for every bad thing that he does. And again, I talked about all of that last week, and I'm bringing it up again because The Rock, is he a heel? Is he a babyface? What's going on with The Rock? Um, the Rock, obviously the initial plan was for The Rock to be the babyface and challenge Roman Reigns to be like the head of the table and the WWE champion. That's what the story was. Cody was going to defer his title shot, it looked like, and people must have thought that fans were just going to accept that and allow Cody to finish the story later, but there was such an uprise, so much chanting, "We want Cody." The segment where The Rock stares down Roman and Cody steps aside was the most disliked YouTube video in WWE history, so they had to pivot and they had to turn The Rock heel. But The Rock isn't a heel the way that Dominic Mysterio is a heel, for example. Like, people pop big when they hear The Rock's music, and they changed his music on SmackDown. They gave him the old Hollywood rock theme, but The Rock still does a little bit of pandering to the crowd and all that, and he still calls himself the People's Champion, and he does things that are really dislikable. But he's just such a cool, badass heel that he just doesn't seem to be fully committed to being hated the way, let's say, like a Christian Cage is, for example. Like, the Rock is almost somewhat of a tweener, like somebody that the crowd likes, but doesn't like for some reason, but is with the bad guys, but says some things that get you excited. Like, there's a lot of ambiguity as far as The Rock's role on television goes, and I think that is a good thing. I think having established heels and established baby faces, it's a little bit passé. Like, a lot of people pop when Roman Reigns come out. People respect Roman Reigns. I just got done saying that people respect Gunther, even though he's a heel. I think it's perfectly fine to have heel on heel programs, but I'm interested to see like where the Bloodline story is going. I mean, more than likely. I mean, I don't know if Cody is going to win at WrestleMania or not. I really don't. I know that they're really trying to make us believe that this is the moment where he finishes the story, but I kind of wonder where the story goes from there if it was to be finished. Like, if Cody ends WrestleMania 40 with the WWE Championship, he hands it to his mom, there's fireworks, people are crying, and they're happy. Like, I don't know that the next year of television is as compelling as it was when we're all begging Cody to finish the story. Cody has he's been able to like handle situations where I wasn't sure that he would in the past. Like, for example, when Cody wins the Royal Rumble, when Sami Zayn, his popularity was at a fever pitch last year, and it looked like the fans were clamoring for Sami, but Cody gets the title shot. I worried that the crowd might turn on Cody, but they didn't, because Cody's so likable, he's so authentic. We talked about all this before. So it also felt like last year I was there at WrestleMania in Los Angeles. It really felt like that was the time. Finish the story. There's lightning in the bottle. You gotta pull the trigger. And then when they didn't, it's like, well, you think that Cody's going to finish the story eventually, but can they capture lightning in a bottle the way that they did last year? And I would argue that this year there's even more hype, like even more excitement around the prospect of Cody finishing the story. I'm still not convinced he's going to win. I'm not saying that I think he's not. I'm just not. I don't think it's set in stone. I think Roman may very well like break Hulk Hogan's like his record. Well, it's not a record, but Hulk Hogan is the third longest reigning WWE champion of all time. And I know there's a little ambiguity in all that because Roman actually started off being the Universal Champion, and that was a new title, and he didn't acquire the WWE Championship until later, and blah blah blah. Who cares? You know, they're kind of treating it as if Roman has had one contiguous 1,000+ day title reign. But here's another thing that's interesting to me. The Rock, he's in that press conference, the WrestleMania press conference in Vegas. He was dropping a few F-bombs, kind of being loosey-goosey with WWE's PG rating and all that, and they bleeped it all out on the press conference. But he's also he's cutting these Instagram promos where he's saying like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You're crying, Cody!" Like dropping a whole bunch of F-bombs and stuff like that, being edgy, being profane in the way that we know and love The Rock for being. It kind of makes me wonder, like, Raw is going to be on Netflix starting in 2025. Netflix, I mean, they have a rating system, but they're not on television. You can say fucking shit on Netflix. Maybe this is just wishful thinking, but maybe WWE is going kind of back into having like a little bit more edgier content. And I think with having edgier content, you don't just have profanity, and I like profanity in wrestling because it's about fighting. It's almost not believable that you're not going to be cussing at your opponent. But it's not just that. I never want to see them go back to the age of like women only being shown on television if they're in bikinis. Like that was bullshit, and we should never go back to the conventions of the 90s in that way. But in some ways, like, God, there's just something about the magic of the Attitude Era that they can't recapture because the PG rating kind of necessitates that they keep things a little bit tame on television. And the Rock is just, he says pro wrestling is cool again. Well, I don't know. Since he's been there, it's kind of, it just gives me a little taste of that magic from the Attitude Era. Maybe during the Netflix era, they're going to be a little bit more loosey-goosey. Maybe you're going to hear, maybe they'll at least be able to let a few cuss words fly every once in a while. Maybe there'll be a little blood, Again, maybe wishful thinking and all that. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but if that ends up happening, I'm gonna play this clip of my video and say, hey, I saw this coming, I predicted it. But there's a lot of intrigue in the program between the Rock and Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and all that. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out, but it is not lost on me that this video is getting a little bit long. I think this is my longest one yet. So yeah, I think we're just going to keep on watching, and we're going to see what happens, and then I will see you next time on Nihilist Wrestling.